Hey guys, so just making this video to share with my guild. It's going to be about AQ40 and my experience so far, just to kind of give people a heads up before we go in tomorrow. Obviously, a lot of the stuff is like, you've seen probably tons of POVs and stuff like that already, but I went in there I managed to sneak into a GDKP. And so it was kind of like, it was straight pug, you know what I mean? And I think that's kind of really nice because you don't have any of those like questions of like, oh wow, is this just a really good guild we're watching? Is that why it's so easy, etc. I mean, I think like we're honestly like a really high caliber guild. In the speed rankings, it doesn't necessarily show as much because we don't tend to focus on that, but I think we have a lot of like really good individual players, and like the leadership is really good, and they really understand the fights, and they always come up with, like, they have specific laid out strategies, super far in advance, and like we're very diligent when it comes to the assignments and things like that, so they're very good at getting everybody up to speed on like what they need to do and making sure everybody knows their role, which I think is like super important in these instances because they're just kind of like mechanic heavy, right? Like the actual numbers you need to put out aren't super high. Of course, we do put out really high numbers. I think that's our specialty, but it's much more focused on the mechanical aspect. So I think it's good to keep that in mind because we're going to have all those advantages going into the instance, whereas like in the pug I was in, it was just like a complete shit show. And honestly, the guy who was leading it did a pretty good job. I give him a lot of credit. But regardless, it's a pug at the end of the day, you know what I mean? And like, we were woefully unprepared. People did come with world buffs, but, they kind of dropped off relatively quickly. It wasn't really, I think it was like Bug Trio claimed a lot of people and then trash. There wasn't really much of an issue on Skeram or any of the pre-Skeram trash. So, yeah, I'll just kind of talk about things. We've already cleared up to Skeram, obviously, the other night when we were doing the clears, so that I think you guys know it's pretty easy. Nothing really much to say there. Skeram himself, I'll start with, I guess. Just a complete utter joke of a boss, and you've probably seen a ton of people kill him by now, but like even in this disorganized pug, like didn't stand a chance. I think we may have lost like 2 people, maybe 1 person. I don't even know if we had anybody die, to be honest. From our guild, like I think if anybody dies in this boss, it's gonna either be because like something weird happens where like we can't separate the things for some, like the copies for some reason, and maybe they were all like explode on each other, but like I don't even think that would kill anybody, to be honest, especially if you're using a greater arcane pot or something, which you might as well pop just for the heck of it. But I think if everybody goes in there with like a greater arcane, like the amount of damage is gonna go out is like so pitiful because we didn't have greater arcane or anything like that, and it was just a complete stomp. The only way somebody's going to die is like LOS, I think, basically, which shouldn't really be an issue given how we have the strat set up. So that boss is just like a complete joke, and I don't think, really much time should be dedicated to that. The trash after wasn't anywhere near as bad as I expected leading up to like Bug Trio. I will say that on the part where you have the stingers, they put like a debuff on you that then becomes a poison, and then if they hit you again or they charge you, it basically one-shots you. So I think we had some deaths to that. They were saying, use poison cleansing totem. Obviously, the problem with that is that, you can't just have the totem down and expect it to cleanse the poison because it cleanses on a tick interval, right? So you're better off just spot cleansing, I'd imagine. That's what I was doing for the most part. It did seem, and I honestly noticed this more in an AQ20 I did the other day, but it seemed like sometimes the poison goes on like extremely, and they charge extremely quickly after they put the poison on, if that makes sense. or after the poison becomes active, because the poison doesn't become active right away. There's like a debuff and that transitions into the poison. But it seemed like there were situations where like you would see the poison appear on somebody, like where it could actually be cleansed, and they would literally just get like, you know, like attacked in that global kind of, and things would get batched. So that's just going to be, I don't know, we'll have to see, like play that by ear and see how it goes. You just have to be as on your guard as possible, I guess, right? There's nothing really else you can do. Earn the buff. Yay. So there was that, but a lot of the other trash is pretty unremarkable. The things that knock you up can be pretty annoying, but as long as you tank them like properly and you have people against the walls, it's not going to be an issue. We didn't really have anybody pull any extra packs. I think one of the stinger, we double pulled the stinger pack, and actually we lived through it, but it took a lot of people's buffs. So ill-advised, but I'm pretty sure we could even survive something like that. It would probably take a lot of overpulling to actually wipe us. Yeah, so trash is not that scary. Bug Trio was a complete joke of a fight. We had the bugs like almost on top of each other for a decent portion of the fight, and it literally didn't matter because I think as long as you kick the one that heals, it, like you're gonna have overlapping mechanics, which makes the fight like a little bit harder. But none of the mechanics are like really like that insane. So like the one that does the poison volley doesn't really do it like enough for it to be a problem. I think we did the normal kill order, so there was that, and that's like the easiest one I think, but I can't imagine it being like that much harder if you did another kill order. I think we only had a few deaths on that. We actually had, I think, deaths due to aggro. Like one of the bugs got loose. Tank didn't die or anything, but for some reason one of the bugs got loose. Oh, it was probably on the fear, because one of them fears or something like that. And of course, you know, the shaman that was in the the group. Well, I shouldn't even say that because maybe he did have tremor down and it just didn't tick because he didn't know about the thing where you have to basically like put it down like right before it happens. So maybe he didn't have timers or something. But yeah, I was actually like tanking a bug for a little bit, and I think I lived through that fight. So yeah, it was like just super easy. It's not even that like you're like ignoring the mechanics. It's just like they're so insignificant that it doesn't really matter, I guess. The Fankriss was the next boss. The Trash Gauntlet, like super easy. Didn't really seem too buggy, which I was a bit surprised about. The Trash kind of responds a bit fast. I would say it doesn't actually seem to respond as fast as the Whelp Room, though, in the in Blackwing Lair, so I think it's almost like actually way easier than the Suppression Room, and we talked about that when we did the run on the private server, but yeah, just super easy, and you can obviously, there is a spot at the end you can kind of like wait, and that's what we did. We got full mana, full everything, probably didn't even need it, and then we went into Fankriss. Fankriss was just another complete joke. We had like a very loose stack around the ass end of the boss, so I actually ended up dying on that fight because I think what happened is like a bunch of the little ads spawned, and I got like insane healing aggro, and they just ran over and literally like all attacked me at once before like a tank picked them up or something. So we could probably just have a tank like challenging for the little ads or something, or you know, like they probably would have been picked up in our raid like way before they got to me. And even then, the only reason why I died is because they literally like all hit me at once. They were actually like all aggroed onto me, which I find kind of a bit incredible, but you know, it was a pug and it was like everybody's first time doing it, so. But yeah, other than that, we didn't have like anybody else. We had a couple other people I think die to that aggro like after it killed me. It went to like another other people and killed a couple other people. But then they just got tanked and AoE down, I believe. And I don't even think we've seen one of the snakes that's actually supposed to be able to one-shot you. And DPS in that group was not really that good. I mean, it wasn't like atrociously bad, but it wasn't very good at all. And we didn't have world buffs because like, well, very few people may have had world buffs. I don't think we wiped before that, but we had like just a ton of people die on trash and stuff like that. So Yeah, the first major, although I guess like the wall kind of we had gotten to is Sartura. So we killed Sartura. I think it took 2 or 3 attempts though, and I think a big problem we had is the pull at first. So we kind of just all like they had everybody run in a bit clumped, and I think what was the game changer is when the tank body pulled, because like prior to that I think we were using like we were pulling with a hunter, and I don't know if it was like him doing something or the tank not being in the right position, but like the aggro on the ads just like immediately, like I don't know, like everything just seemed to immediately go to like the casters, and we had like a big group of casters that were like clumped up, and they basically just got like all the ads were in the same spot and like cleaving, and yeah, it was bad. Like what would happen is like I think we wiped 2 or 3 times, and on each wipe, I think we actually wiped twice and then killed it the third time, but on each wipe we would lose a ton of people at the start, and then we get everything under control, and the fight was like we had like literally probably 15 people up killing the ads and shit, and we went like as slow as needed and killed the ads. We were just DPSing the boss, but like when you would lose anybody at that point, like when Sartura would go off the tank and just attack people, it was kind of becoming a problem because like you only had 15 people left. And then what would happen is when she would enrage, she would just kind of like, I think she enraged like what, 20%, and that was just really hard to deal with only having 15 people alive. And you know, some of them are healers, obviously there's a couple tanks, so we don't have that many DPS, and there's not a lot of like it's not like it was like insane DPS either, you know what I mean? So that fight got cleaned up. It's like basically is when we didn't all die in the pull, it was fine. And like nobody was really using lips or anything like that. I think lip is going to be like super key on the fight for like squishy casters. I wouldn't even worry about using like mana pots or anything on that fight, because if you really need to pot, you can just use a dark rune. And I think lip is going to be the thing that you want to save, because like having 6 seconds of invuln is just like stupid OP, because like you're not going to like, there's almost no situation where you all die through the lip. Basically, if you, as long as you lip at the right time, if you have all your buffs and stuff, like I was at 3.5k health starting that fight, and I could even tank a bit of the whirlwind that the ads would do. But if you have, like we're gonna have like 6k HP, like my priest is buffed right now, logged off, and has like 6k. So you're gonna be able to tank a decent bit. My shaman did have a shield, but I think, let's see if I would put the shield on. This isn't gonna be perfect because I don't have the right gear on. Okay, so I have 4200 armor, potentially a little bit more in my actual, probably less actually in my actual healing gear because a lot of it's cloth. I think I had like 3.5k armor maybe, or something like that. And with my priest, I can get like 3.2 or 3.3k armor with improved inner fire and an armor pot. So that's what I'm going to be running. I have like 6k health. And I think the ads were hitting me for around like 600 or something like that. So the thing is, I'm not going to have a shield, so I can't block. I think some of that shit can probably be blocked, but other than that, like it's going to be almost like my priest is almost going to be like tankier, effective health-wise, right? So, and then I didn't have any lips on the shaman, but you can literally just like be taking a bunch of damage and then lip at the last second and be fine. So I think that fight's going to be super easy. Just bring your lips and, you know, like use them at a time when you actually feel threatened. The other thing too is the ads are going to die super quick. We didn't have that many stuns or anything like that. So, and because our DPS is so good, and we're still going to have world buffs before we get there, I think that's going to make like all the difference in the world. And as soon as you kill it, like the faster you kill the ads, the easier the fight is, because then like it gets way under control and you don't have to worry about like ads going everywhere. But I think it just making sure you're kind of like spread out going into the pull is big. and people just being ready to lip at all times. Next fight we did is Huhuran, and we got Huhu to 10% out. I think it was like 2 pulls, but then we called it after that because the problem is we started late, like really late. So I think if we started like a normal time, we may have even killed Huhu. It seemed like when we hit the 30% mark and the damage started going out, like people did die pretty fast, and you know, a couple of people were like, "Oh wow, not even close, really," because how much damage is going out. But you have to keep in mind that we had pretty terrible DPS. Nobody had world buffs left at all because we had wiped on Sartura. So if anybody had them, like they were pretty much gone. And what was I gonna say? Yeah, so no world buffs, slow DPS. Oh yeah, nobody had greater nature potions or anything. We didn't really have any real NR soakers. Like we had people. It was basically like, okay, like put 1 in raid chat if you have NR gear, and then it's like how much NR gear do you have? Some people are like, oh, I have 80, I have 60. So basically, like literally nothing, right? And those were our designated quote-unquote soakers. And nobody had any greater nature protection pots. They probably weren't consuming, and they had no world buff, so the health was super low. And the gear level is obviously going to be way lower than our raid because we've been splitting both MC and Blackwing Lair. And this is a pug. So I think when you consider all those factors, I don't see how we don't just slam the shit out of Huhu. A couple notes about the fight, though. I'll say that like the poison bolt that she shoots that puts like the cloud on the ground, that caught me a bit by surprise with how big it is. It can actually like hit a lot of people at once if you're clumped. And I think if we wipe to that boss, it's probably not going to be to the tank dying or to like an enrage, but it's actually going to be because we lost too many people early on to something stupid like that, and then like the negative effects of that are going to carry over into like the enrage phase. Because obviously, like if we go into the phase with like 25 people alive, it's going to be hard. You know what I mean? But if we have a full 40, it should be easy. And that poison silences for forever and deals a lot of damage. And like if you're even like close to the person who gets targeted or whatever, it'll hit you. So you want to be like hyper cognizant of always moving away when it gets cast, and you want to be spread out. Like as long as like not a ton of people get hit by it, you'll be fine. But our very first pull, like an assload of casters got hit by it, and it was like an insane mana drain actually to stabilize from that. I think it kind of put the tank's health in jeopardy as well. He may have died because we were so focused on like getting people like top back off from that. The tank damage though didn't really seem anything to write home about, even during the enrage really. The thing is, the tank probably was using a shield at that point maybe, so it was probably more of a traditional protection tank. So that may be a bit misleading. Although we'll probably throw on a shield, I imagine, at low percent, especially if you guys have threat leads or something like that. So, but yeah, I think the boss is going to go down like super easy for us. I mean, we got it to 10% in the pug, like I said, with literally nothing. No, forget like pre-popped greater nature and protection potions. Like we didn't have a pre-pop and then a pop at 30 once it's gone. We didn't have pre-shields from the priests. Like, it was just like try and live, and we almost did it still. I think how I'm going to play the fight as priest is just play it pretty normally. And then around, I'll have to see like how fast the boss's health is going down, but I'm going to start trying to get a bunch of pre-shields out before 30% on the soakers. And probably won't be able to put renew on them because they're going to be melee, I would assume. And I guess just like spam flash from there, most likely. I'm probably not going to be in a position where I'm going to be able to effectively utilize prayer of healing, so I feel like after I do the pre-shielding, I'm probably just going to be on like the tank cancel casting for the most part. And then if you see somebody that gets like super chunked, you can just spot heal them or something like that. Like obviously, with people having like varying resistance values, and then on top of that, just RNG, like you're gonna have some people that are gonna like take probably no damage, like once all the stuff wears off still, because they get a resist or whatever, and then you're gonna have other people that are getting chunked. So, I mean, yeah, just spot heal as needed and keep some heals in the tank. I think we should be fine. I think the shamans will be able to do a really good job healing the melee. Can probably just like go balls to the walls with like max rank chain heal. Oh, the wyvern sting. So they were at first against dispelling it on the tank, and so I pointed out that like the tank loses a mitigation, you know, and he's obviously slept, and they're like, oh no, he still has his armor, and I'm like, yeah, that's not really what I meant. So they tried to think of a pull of not cleansing it, and that didn't go so well, so then we cleansed it and it was fine. I think the reason why they wanted to do it is because one of the wipes was, or they wanted to leave it on him, is because one of the wipes, he actually got killed by the poison dispel, because he wasn't like topped off or something. But, you know, that's just kind of like pug healing, lol, so I think it should be fine for us. You just have to make sure, obviously, we keep Day pretty topped, because if he does get slept, you don't want him to get slept at like 40% and then have to take that damage, and it's going to be like super close. So just something to keep in mind there. But other than that, I think we'll be absolutely fine on Huhuran. So we didn't do anything else, obviously, because we called it after that. I'll give my general thoughts on some of the other bosses from what I've seen, and kind of how I'm going to try and approach them from a healing perspective. So, Twin Emps. I know we talked about healers being on the stairs. I think I'm going to try and stay off the stairs, because there seems to be some type of bug happening that people think involves the stairs, where the one that casts the shadow bolts will actually like just start walking up to the person that's casting on and meleeing them. And it's speculated that that's happening because it's trying to cast Blizzard on somebody who may or may not be LOS on the stairs. And if that person's LOS, then the boss is like maybe trying to get closer, and then once it gets into melee range of the Warlock tank, it just starts meleeing him. It seems like from what I was watching on the VODs, like it can still easily be healed through. It's just a thing where, like, if you're expecting a certain type of incoming damage, like a pattern, and then, like, you don't actually realize that the boss has walked up and hit the Warlock and is, like, meleeing him, you know, you're probably going to get thrown off, and the damage is probably going to come in a little faster, and it might be, like, larger than you expect, so it can be healed through, but I think ideally we just don't have it happen. I'm sure that if it does happen, though, it'll get called out almost immediately. So at that point, like, if you ever hear that the, I think it's Veclor, I don't know which one is which, really, but the one that does, like, the shadow damage is, like, meleeing the Warlock tank. Just heal the shit out of the Warlock tank, because I've definitely seen that wipe people. And it's not the thing where, like, it happens after the teleport, because I know that's a concern, too, and that's something we should be aware of, where we don't want our Warlock tank like too close as to where he's getting aggro on the melee guy after teleport. It's not that at all. It's the ranged guy being at range, casting at the Warlock, and then for no reason whatsoever, seemingly just walks up and starts meleeing. So I think that's really the only issue we'll probably have there. Other than that, it seems like a pretty easy fight, just kind of like an endurance fight. I'm going to pop a greater frost protection just to deal with any blizzard stuff. I don't think the blizzard itself is going to be a huge problem, but it's just like if you get caught in the blizzard and then a bug tries to like kamikaze you maybe. So I may actually even pop a greater fire protection potion just in case one of the bugs explodes. The stuff is like relatively cheap. You probably don't even need like a greater one if you really can't afford it. You can just use like a normal fire protection. So I just go all out on our new instance runs. And speaking of consumables, what I would recommend with the flasks is don't pop them immediately going into the instance, because literally the first even I would say Sartura is a joke in the sense that it's not gonna if we were to theoretically wipe on Sartura, it's not gonna be because the healers went You know what I mean? It has nothing to do with the mana pot. So I would honestly probably use my flask maybe before Twin Emps or something like that. I don't know, but I just don't see there being a reason to really use it super early, and you can always use it on command to get the mana back, right? Because that's how it works. So that's what I would do there. And the reason why I say that is because just in the event that we do have issues or whatever, I definitely want to have the mana flask for Twin Emps, Cthulhu, and Vicidius or whatever his name is, Vicidus. I think that's where it's actually going to be needed most, probably, is that fight. So, and maybe Cthulhu would be nice to have. So yeah, I would just maybe wait a bit to pop it, for sure. What else am I thinking? Okay, so next boss would be Cthulhu. Cthulhu doesn't really seem like too much of a healing intensive fight to me. I think that the main thing with Cthulhu, and something that Smashy said when he was talking to us the other night, preparing us for the raid, is that when he does the rotation, the dark glare, it's really helpful to just know where you are at that point, and then know where you need to be on the map, and then just literally walk there immediately, as long as you're not getting killed by the beam. And I think that'd be super helpful. And if everybody does that, it should make that phase of the fight so much easier, because nothing really is going on during that phase of the fight, and there's no punishment for being clumped up. So if you do it that way, it just trivializes the mechanic. I feel where people are going to get confused if they just start aimlessly walking, and so the beam starts, let's say the beam starts, this is the beam, right, going this way, and you're here, and it's rotating this way, following you, right? So you're here, and you're running, and you're oh shit, the beam, and you start running, and now you're here, and you're oh shit, how long have I been running for, right? And now you have no reference of where you need to go, really. You know it's... So you know that it's not going to be on this side of the room, 180 degrees from where you are there, because you've already started running. So you know it's less than that, but you don't know how much distance you've already covered. And I think that's where we're going to run into problems on the reposition. Is oh, where am I now that... And that seems to be where we're having issues on the P server. So I think the thing that Smashy said of just you're here, you see where 180 degrees is across from you at that moment, and then as soon as the dark glare starts, that's what you do, you know what I mean? I think if we do that, we'll be absolutely fine. Phase 2 seems like an absolute joke, because the tentacle should never be alive long enough to actually cause any significant problems whatsoever. The I-beam ones. There's a weak aura, that I can provide that for the I-beam that lets you know when you're targeted. I don't know how much advance it's going to give you basically, but I assume it might at least be a second, because he's probably going to target you, look at you, and then cast the I-beam. Obviously we should all be spread out before that in anticipation of that happening, but in the event that you have somebody a little bit close to you, you might have a second to micro adjust or whatever. It'll be really helpful if there's a cooldown for the I-beam specifically. We'll have to see if DBM tracks that, and if there is, then it's going to be super easy to play around. But if not, I guess you can kind of be like, oh, I have a little bit more freedom right after it happened. But that's about it, right? Because it seems like I don't know, maybe it's like a random timer or something. On the private server, when I was watching you guys, it seemed like when Day was going in, he was getting beamed quite a few times in sort of rapid succession. I don't know if that's a thing, like, when you just first walk in, if that's how it happens, because, like, maybe he doesn't have people in his, like, range or whatever to target. So that's why it hits the tank so many times. But it did seem like he was getting a lot of attention from the beam. So if it goes off that frequently during the fight, it might be a thing where you literally just need to stay still at all times until the big rotation. But I think, like, Matt, like, just focusing on being in the 180 degree, like, opposite spot of, like, where you were when the beam started is, like, the main thing we need to focus on. And if we can focus on that, then it's perfect. So, another thing, too, is, like, if you're close to the beam at the start of that, you can actually probably use the beam, I guess, as a reference, right? Because it should be on the, like, if it starts on one side of him, it should end on the other side. So if you're either, like, in front of it, like, directly in front of it, or directly behind it, like, both of those work pretty well. Obviously, being behind it would be preferable, but, you know. As far as Ouro goes, I don't really see that fight being too challenging at all. I think it's going to be like a binary thing where it's like I don't think we're going to wipe you to healing on that fight. Especially with how we have the group set up pretty intelligently with the Ignite Mage off to the side. I really don't see the Sandblast being too much of an issue for us. And if we just get Sandblasted over and over again, the melee just get thrashed to death, then I guess there's really nothing the healers can do about that. But, like, I think as long as other people are doing their jobs, it'll be pretty much fine from a healing perspective. I think we'll be able to keep the tank up and stuff just fine. That's going to probably be the main focus. Ideally, there shouldn't be a ton of raid damage going out, so not much to say about that fight, I don't think. And then I think Viscidus is the last boss. Let's see what we covered here. Bug Trio. Yeah, pretty much went over everything except for Viscidus. So how I think I'm going to start Viscidus is we're going to have the priests, like, whatever your buff group is, like, to buff the raid, we're going to have you try and pre-shield as many people in those groups as you can before the fight starts. And how I do that as a priest basically is, like, I'll cast a shield on somebody, like mouse over, cast a shield, then I'll drink for like the 4 seconds or something it's on cooldown, and then pop back up, cast into the shield. So I'll just drink for like the little ticks in between to try and get as many shields out before the fight while still maintaining, you know, like around like 90th percentile mana, something like that, so we don't go too just trying to pre-shield everybody. And then, like, once we get this shield, I think I'm going to keep shielding until all the people in those two, all the people, like, are shielded, I guess. If we can even do that, we'll have to see. I think the Poison Volley is going to eat the shield first, because I'm pretty sure how things apply is, like, the thing that was put on most recently takes damage first, so we're probably going to be doing a lot of shielding in the earlier stages of the fight, I would imagine, because people are going to have their Greater Nation Protection pots pre-popped and stuff like that, and they're going to pop them again during the fight, most likely. So, I think just, like, adding more shields on top of that for a buffer is going to be good. I'm not sure really the balance we want to strike with, like, wanding. Because in some sense, like, the raid is not going to be taking damage, like, very early on in the fight due to all the shielding. So that's a good time to wand. But there's obviously, like, also setup that goes into that, right? So I'm thinking, like, the idea is, like, we're probably not going to have full shields on everybody, like, going on the pull. Like, we're going to have maybe, like, a group and maybe, like, 1 to 2 people in the next group shielded. the boss is going to pull, I'm going to continue to shield the people who haven't been shielded, or reapply shields on people who they've just faded on. And if there's no actual like damage going out, then I'm just going to be like shield, wand, when I get my power word shield cooldown back, then power word shield, then go back to wand. And then once people actually start like taking damage, like once the shielding has been broken, that's where you start to like pump. Obviously prayer of healing for the priest is going to be really good if the group calls for it, but it can be a bit tricky because like people have different values again of NR and just different RNG, so you might have some people resisting a ton of stuff, other people not. I think it's actually going to come down to a lot of spot healing, and probably won't get to use prayer healing that much. It'd be cool if we do, but I mean, it's definitely optimal to use it, like if enough people are taking the proper amount of damage, but I just don't know if that's going to be the case. The one thing I was thinking about is so we freeze him, right? And then we have to break him. So like you get him frozen, I think, and then he stops doing like the AoE stuff and hitting the tank. But then you have to keep hitting him to break him apart into the little oozes. Now, I watched like a VOD of this, and I timed from when he like breaks apart, like the animation from when he breaks apart and then reassembles. And I think it's about like 20 seconds or something like that in total. So what I was thinking initially was that like I'm going to use the time where like we're breaking him basically to kind of like reset up. And I think that's like partially right, because I don't think that we're going to need to be, like the priests, for example, are going to need to be like hardcore hitting the boss during that phase, because we're probably going to have more than enough to like break him into the blobs. And there's not a rush against time. Like if anything, we want to be wanding more before that, because that's when he's actually active and dealing damage, right? So once we get to the part where we break him into the blob, it's like less important that our healers are actually like wanding him and stuff like that. So I think during that phase, I'm going to try and catch up if there's like people that are low. And then once we've caught up, I imagine we PI the mages like as soon as like the balls appear. And then I think depending on like how my mana is and stuff, like I may actually try and speed pot with the mages and get some Holy Novas off. If the mana looks like it might be a problem, I'm just gonna probably pot normally or a GMPP and just kind of like chill in the middle. And I think like as stuff's coming in, I'll probably get a few shields up. I'll try and like re-shield some people. And then Sapper and just Holy Nova spam as hard as I can. I'm almost thinking if we haven't used it before that, Divine Favor on a Holy Nova there could be like super clutch. Obviously our PI is going to probably go to the mages, so... But yeah, just like PI, get a crit Holy Nova off. Should be a decent amount of damage, like maybe 600 damage with a Sapper. That's like almost like having another Sapper. Like having a healer double Sapper. So that's actually kind of nice from 4 priests. I think it's going to be really close. From all the videos we've seen, right, it's like super close. So I was trying to think of like anything we can do to provide like little additional damage that's not going to like int us during the fight. I was thinking of using like the Ramstein's trinket, but I think I might want to use the NR trinket. I'm not entirely sure. So that could be an option too if you guys want, but yeah, I think that's how I'm going to proceed there. And then while he's reforming, just get as many shields out as possible, catch people up, and then kind of go back at it again. The second time, we're just going to have a lot less protection on people. is the thing, right? So I think that's where, if anything, if we get a second like reform phase, that's where we're gonna see the prayers of healing come in. And if we're not really in a position to use prayer of healing based on how the group is taking damage, then I would say it's probably gonna be like put a shield on somebody, flash, flash, shield, flash, flash, shield, something like that, I would say. I was thinking about renews, but I think the problem is that, like, I mean, like if the, I feel like the only time I'd be tempted to really cast renew is if like bubble is on CD and people are not really taking damage yet, right? So like if people still have pretty much their full health due to like all the absorbs and stuff, and I just bubbled somebody, it's on CD, at that point it makes sense to renew. But I could also be wanding during that time, and you know what I mean? So I don't really know how effective renew is going to be. I don't anticipate it being that effective. I mean, if our melee has buffs and stuff like that still, then it's probably not even going to be usable at all. But it could definitely be used in the casters, theoretically. But I don't... I just think that the fight is not going to last long enough where the renew healing is going to be super important. Typically, I found renew to be really strong in situations where I need to, like... where people are taking AoE damage, but they're not taking it frequently enough where, like, the next tick is going to kill them. So I can have the renew healing people, like, kind of passively to just get them up enough to take the next tick of the AoE and kind of keep their health at a consistent state. And when you do use it like that, it's, like, super mana efficient. And in cases where, like, other people have already, like, blown through their mana, like, it's not going to get sniped as hard. But I feel like in this fight, especially if we have access to, like, a potion or a dark rune, we're going to have plenty of mana to finish the fight, right? So it's not like my renew is going to be getting a ton of value. It's probably just going to be getting sniped. So therefore, I feel like I'm probably better off just wanding. Speaking of wands, I have the wand from Duskwall Marsh, I think, the Onyxia's Brood Lair. 1.4 speed cold one. It's a really good one to get, but any like 1.5 speed will work fine. I think there's one from a Desolus quest in Shadowprey Village. And there's also one from AV, I think, from winning a match. It's 1.5 speed, so both of those will work fine. Oh, and how much NR am I going to wear, right? That's probably the last thing. So, I've talked about this a lot with a bunch of people. I talked with Boozy last night. We were kind of like looking at logs of people who had done the fight, and like Horde seems to use barely any NR gear on healers, and I think that might be because like we have stuff like the Nature's this Totem or the Hunter aspect. I'm not sure like how we're gonna do the Shaman totems, because I realized the other night when I was on the Shaman that Wind Fury and Nature Resistance Totem actually you both use Water Totem. So I'm not sure like if it'd be more beneficial to have the 60 NR or Wind Fury on the melee to get more hits in with their weapons or whatever, get more procs. So obviously the officers will let us know that, what they think is best. But yeah, I think that generally speaking, if people are using the NR totem, that might be why Horde is like skimpier than Alliance on the NR. But personally as a healer, like I feel like a lot of the gear is just super cumbersome in the sense that it's going to make my character feel really weak if I wear it. I have pretty much almost like an NR piece for every slot, but I don't think I'm going to actually use nearly that much NR. So the pieces that I'm considering are the boots from Mordon that are like, they have int on them, I think, like 13 int or something like that. A little bit of stamina and like 10 NR. And then I'm going to use one Noxian Trinket in place of my Shard of Scale because I really don't feel like the mana per 5 is like that, especially just in isolation on that item, is really going to be like a super impactor for that fight. Like I'd rather have the little bit of NR. So that's 20 NR. I'll have the 15 to cloak enchant. So that's 35. I mean, I have a cloak to put on that has 10 NR, but it doesn't have any other stats. So again, like I'm not sure if I want to actually use that. I have two 18 NR rings. I think on the first pull I'm gonna go in with like as little NR as I'm probably just gonna honestly use the boots and the trinket, and then I got the amulet from doing the quest in Silithus, so I'll probably use that. And then we should have a hunter, I think, or something in our group. Even said, so that'll be like 10, 20, 35, the cloak enchant. Could actually get the shoulder enchant from Argent Dawn, would be 40, and then this would be 8, so I'd have like 48 plus 60, so like 108 NR. I think that'd be pretty damn decent. If you have green dragon loot, or if you actually get loot like before the what do you call it? Like if you get loot before, like from the instance itself, like obviously feel free to wear that if it's like decently statted. But a lot of the stuff that you get that isn't from Green Dragons or isn't from AQ itself is pretty terrible. So that's why I'm kind of opting to stay away from it, because we're going to really need our mana and plus healing to carry us to that fight, I think. So yeah, I'll probably be running maybe around like 40 NR. I'll try at the start, like self-buffed, and we'll just adjust from there. I think the way to play it is like have the stuff on you for if we need it, but I think we're honestly going to be most effective without it as healers, to be honest, or without it like at least in the major slots where it's going to harm us. So yeah, that's pretty much it. It's probably longer than I anticipated, but yeah, I think we're gonna go in there and shit stomp it, to be honest, so I wouldn't be too worried or anything like that, but just wanted to make a little something to give you a heads up on what my experience was with the little bit of it that I've done on live, and kind of like how I'm planning on approaching some of the bosses. Mainly Viscidus is the one I wanted to talk about, as I don't think the other ones are going to require like very specific healing strategies, other than like don't let the tank die. So yeah, thanks again for watching, and see you guys tomorrow in Raid.